light, which is a vibrational healing technique. She's been doing this for 17 years. So please help me welcome Nancy Byers talking about healing with sound.
Thank you, and welcome. I'm so happy to have people in the room at the end of the day. This is a wonderful surprise that you would hang out, and it's a nice chance to get to sit as well. I wanted to use this time to very briefly give you a few tidbits of how I came to do what I'm doing and have named it the language of light. My background was in elementary teaching, then on to very traditional marriage and family counseling. And from there, I was ready for a change, and I had opened up to this idea of intention and how important it is in our lives. And at the same time, I was hearing that by opening up to possibilities beyond what I could consciously think of would also open some doors possibly. So given that I was a little tired with traditional counseling, I uttered a very conscious prayer to the universe, and it was something like this: I would really like to do whatever is up next for me, and whatever that is, I'm open to. And then I added a little footnote, and if by any chance I could use my voice, that would really be fun. And that was it. But at the time, I thought maybe that meant I could sing Dionne Warwick songs to my kids. Honestly, I had no idea what was about to be put into motion. 3 nights after I uttered that prayer, during nighttime, I was awakened in this bubble of light, purring like a cat to this exquisite feeling of love. This occurred night after night after night. I didn't have words for it. It was way beyond anything I had ever experienced. And I ended up going back to a counselor who knew me well through a divorce I had been through some years earlier, asking for her help in just processing it. And when I got back to her office, this process started in her office, and she became the gatekeeper over a 3-year period for the development of what then became the language of light. I had no idea that sound was even going to be a part of this journey, nor did I realize at the time that it was connected to the utterance of that prior prayer. All sorts of physical things were happening during the development of this, part of which was to learn to be very still. We've all heard that thing about getting quiet, just get quiet and listen. Well, that's what this involved, being very still. The counselor ended up taking apart her couch, putting cushions on the floor. I would lie next to her in silence, and all sorts of very beautiful feelings would occur, accompanied by all sorts of different feelings of pressure in different parts of my head. My heart rate would change, coloring would change to a bright, bright red from the amount of heat, all sorts of things. At the time, people were asking me, friends who knew that I was going through this were saying, well, aren't you afraid? I mean, aren't you afraid? And I would always feel the feeling of it, and there was nothing scary about the feeling. My left brain would say, boy, this should be scary, it's so different. But the feeling was always rooted in love, and every time I would ask, what is this? How does this work? Who, what, how? All I would ever hear internally was trust with the deepest part of your knowing. So at some point, I feel that I volunteered to put on a blindfold, and I wasn't going to get there through the get there meaning wherever I was going, through the traditional means of reading and researching. Instead, I had to absolutely surrender and navigate through my heart, feeling if it was right or not, and it always felt exquisite. And I was blessed with this counselor because she became the gatekeeper, really, and I was a counselor, remember, she was a counselor, and what was happening was totally non-traditional. We both had to be willing to throw out our textbooks and everything we knew to allow this process to evolve. At the 3-year mark, still no sound, there came a particular session during which I experienced something, it was an image. I was in a deep state of quiet and calm and a state of open-heartedness and love. And then I saw this picture. It was as if someone were taking a paint stirring stick, you know those wooden sticks when you're about to use paint to stir it? It was like there was a scrambling going on in my language center. And that particular session, when I sat up afterwards, I could not access English first. I looked at Betty, who is the counselor, and I remember focusing on her eyes and starting to make these awkward sounds, just weird sounds. And imagine her, we're 3 years into it, and all she does is look at me and smiles and shrugs and goes, well, I guess there's a new chapter we're heading towards. I mean, just calm. She had such trust, which was so beautiful. She kept saying over and over again, as I was the one questioning so much, she said, I have no clue what this is or where it's going, but I do know you, and I know this isn't crazy. I can feel the love, and I know it's about growth, so why not stick with it? So she had a beautiful attitude, which is a wonderful one to carry on for any of us, even in friendship, with these things. The next session, when I came back and I lay down, we uttered a hymn that we sang every time together at the beginning of the session. That particular session, as soon as I started this little hymn, it switched and I caught what I call this universal sound current and started delivering this, what I called gibberish at the time, but it just lifted me into this blissful state. And every time I went after that, I was delivering these sounds. And after 8 months of that, a friend called and said there was a Swami from India in town. I went to hear him at someone's home, and it was announced he was going back to India, so I took a tape to him asking for help, because at that point it was a little bit hard psychologically, because as a traditional counselor I had no clue how I could use what I was doing now with the sound, because it would be equivalent to inviting you as a client into my office. Hi, come on in, take my hand and let's lie down. It's not going to work. Ethically it created some problems initially. But when I went to the Swami and took this tape to him, he very kindly listened to it since it was announced he was going back to India. And I said, can you help me? I don't know what this is. He very kindly listened, and he said, this is not gibberish, not to worry. This is actually, this particular set of sounds was Sanskrit, and they were the sounds of time. And the tantric yogis, he said, used that particular pattern of sounds to attune to their light bodies. So he encouraged me by just saying, if this is happening in this way, just give thanks and surrender more deeply. So I did that, and after that, I would be in public places. Let's say we're all on the grocery store together, and I'd be drawn to different people. I could be drawn to you, say, and I'd try to be polite. I'd have 3 kids here asking, Mommy, can I have this? Mommy, can I have that? But I'd be drawn to you. And I'd look away, and I'd look here, and in my mind's eye, I started seeing movies. I'd see these sounds coming out of my mouth, traveling to you, and very quickly helping and breaking up and reorganizing energy, reharmonizing. If you think about it, if you wake up and you're in a funk and you put on your very favorite music, if you just crank it up a bit, it affects us. Very quickly, sound has the ability to change our moods, to affect our energy fields. And this is what I was learning, that this is what this is about, that very quickly energy could shift. But it was another 2 years before I could actually use it with people, because I was still on the floor and all. So I would be in a traditional counseling session with a couple, say, and they'd be sitting in front of me talking about what their presenting problem, but I'd see a movie going on of how very quickly this energy could be broken, this pattern, this thought, this belief that they were holding could very quickly be broken up and reorganized. And after the 2 years of seeing those pictures and not being able to do it, I finally had the opportunity to test it out with a friend. And in those days, I was still on the floor. I couldn't hold the energy yet. I was still integrating a lot of the sounds. And over time and overdoing it, practicing, I mean, just doing it, the more I did it, the more my physical body integrated these sounds. And when I first started working with people, I noticed that it was very customized in very subtle ways often. But in doing it, different people would have different reactions. One person would sit up afterwards and say, "That's so interesting. I've been studying the Quran, and I understood some of what you were saying." Others would hear a Native American form and report that, but I never could validate it because my part was simply to deliver without knowing. So, to interrupt the journey, here we are today. We have this time together, and I thought I would offer, especially it's the end of the Expo, that we could use this time to offer a blessing, not only for ourselves collectively, but we could take that blessing and offer it to all others, not only here, but beyond our circle, out to others in need at this time. And of course, we know that extends really far in all directions. So if it's all right with you, I'll jump into doing that. I'll be happy to answer questions later. One thing I want you to know is that in a particular delivery, long after I was standing up and moving around, because that eventually did come, thankfully, a gentleman walked up to me after I had done a delivery and said, "Do you know what you're saying when you do what you do?" And I just, no, it's not really for me to know, but I always feel two things about it. One is it's always about love, because I have never felt anything but that ever doing it. Secondly, that it's about remembering. And I said it's the strangest thing, but every time I do this, I feel that it's a ceremony of remembrance. And someone can say, "Well, remembering what?" Well, it's beyond our conscious knowing. I love Einstein's comment that you can't solve a problem with the same consciousness that created that problem. And I think what this language of light is offering us is an opportunity to go beyond the way we usually process information, like right now you're hearing English, to access a deeper part of ourselves, a part that may be encoded, if you will, and without me having any expertise in this, that's like a Bic lighter that comes along and is jump-starting the remembrance of who we are way beyond our individual dramas and journeys and stories that we've created about ourselves. So, also, as I come around, I'll come down there and I'll walk back and forth, and I'll be happy. If you want to keep your eyes closed, fine. If you want to look at eyes, I'll connect with your eyes. I'm used to doing that. If you want to put a hand up, often my fingers moving as if reading. Be happy to do that. If somebody doesn't want to do it and needs to pass, just say pass, and that's fine too. No pressure whatsoever on that count. Are there any questions before we start? Any wonderings? No? No? What a trusting group. Thank you. Okay then. I will hold an intention, if you'll join me in this, that whatever is needed most by us at this moment in time, may that be offered always and only from the highest place of love. Be sure to check with yourself to make sure that you're ready for whatever that is, because we never know, do we? Sometimes you go, "Oh yeah, I'll open to change," and then whammo, like me, 3 days after my life changed. So, all right, we'll go. Also, if anyone wants or has the need to speak back spontaneously and you don't even know why, by all means jump in. This happens often, so I want to mention that too. Okay, I'll start up here with the group and then I'll come around individually.
Borosharum baratandra tandra tandrata. Baragrim Bria Yagrim Horamakrim Bria Yagrim Hoshagrim Bria Yagrim Horamakrim Bria Yagrim Horamakrim Bria Yagrim Tirata. Borosharum baratandra tandra 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 ta. 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 Biragrim Bria Yagrim Kiragagrim Maragrim 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 Barashiragrim Bria Yagrim Horamagrim Bria Yagrim Mugurim Matarum Borosharum Baratandra Tandra 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 Taram 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 Biragrim Bria Yagrim Hoshagrim Mukarim Mukarim Mukarimad Borogrim Bria Yagrim Horamagrim Bria Yagrim Horam aram, hurup, arad, arasharagrim, miryayagrim, hurmata, mata, mata. Iragrim, miryayagrim, hoshagrim, miryagrim, hurmagrim, miryagam. Brokrim, miryayagrim, sharam, badi, ragrim, hurmakrim, batiragrim, miryam, nakrim, haram. Baragrim, miryayagrim, hurmagrim, miryayagrim, uragrim, miryayagrim, hurmata. Marasharandara tandara 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 ta. 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 Will you join me in saying ta 3 times? Ta. 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 Biragrin biryayagrin muhurmakrin biryayagrin muhusharim bagrin biryayagrin muhurmatindata. Barafshiragrin biryayagrin muhurmakrin biryayagrin muhusharim batrinata. Om Hurum Hurum Hara. Om Harum Harum Hara. Will you join me in Hara? Hara. 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 Biragrin Bikirata Burushurum Hurum Hara. Biragrin Biryayataram. Om Harum Harum Hararam. Om Harum Harum Hararam. Yembaram niriyaramaram hodam. Yembakiragrinimiriyamakiranaharam hoda. Yembakiragrinimiriyamakiranaharam hodanam. Yembakiragrinimiriyamakiranaharam hoda. Yemma kiragrini miryal yemma kiranda haram hod. Yemma kiragrini miryal yemma kiranda shiragrini miryal yemma kiranda haram hod. Haram hod. Haram hod. Bangiril yamma kirananda shiragrini miryal yamaram. Yembarandere kiranda shiragrini miryal yamma kiranda haram. Yembarandere yamma kiranda haram hod. Yedam hod. Yedam hod. Yedam hold. Deep breath. If you can remember to take a deep breath too, that will help before and after. Biragrin biriyalyama kiragrin miriyalyagirin miriyalyama shiragrin miriyalyama kirandan dan 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 dan. Yemba kiragrin miryayamma kirananda shiragrin miryayammaram hodam. Yeram haram, yeram haram. Bangir kiragrim sharam haram. Yembarandereram haram. Birakran dattarata burushurum hurum hara. Iragrin biryaliyataram burukurum baratandara tandara tandara taram. 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 Biragrin bikirada burukurum baratandarata. Yedam haram hurata burushurum baratandarata. Iragrin biryaliyakaram burushurum haram hararam. Iragrin biryaliyata burukurum harum hara. Harum hara. 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 Deep breath. I
think I'm on a leash. It's okay. Just me.
Birakram bakkaram ahad, boroshorum ud ad. Birariariatata, burukuram baratandarata. Eragrim riariakad, boroshorum ud ad. Ud ad. 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 This is where my preference would be to roll you off on a gurney into a little sleep quarters for a while and go ahead and sleep just to integrate the sounds, because
introducing sounds like that is just the beginning of the sounds then moving and affecting change depending on your willingness to allow that to happen. You can help that process as you go to bed this evening, even just recalling this and asking that the sounds very gently continue to move through your body. Sounds move through us, and as they come to blockages of energy, they're just going, moving it. And if something's ready to be removed, then it will gently in its own time, and sometimes not so gently. Pardon? Yes, just break away and break up and reharmonize. Excuse me? Perfect. Continue with your intention for how you want those sounds. Perfect, exactly. So take your own intention and how you want them. And I always add gently, just because I prefer gently. And I do have cards if there's any concern or feedback or need for additional input, by all means contact me. Be happy to help. I have a website. You can read further about the story if there's any interest in that. I have that on the card. This piece of paper, if anyone cares to look at it, when I had mentioned to that gentleman that I always felt it was about love and remembering, he smiled and went off, and he came back with this piece of paper. This was back in 1998 at a Healing Sounds conference. And he said, it's funny that you said what you said. You'll see why. He said, I'm a linguist, and I actually understood a lot of what you said to the group, and that particular set had been Persian. So he wrote the phrases he understood off the top of his head in Persian on the left and translated them, and he said, you'll be most interested in the two at the bottom. So I'm scanning, and the next to the last one is the word memory, and the last phrase is remember as in a command. So literally the words at that point, remember as a command, were the first validation I had for that sense of remembering something. And I figured I'm doing this work because I really needed lots of remembering, like a whole lot of remembering. So, any questions? Any?
The words come to you in a dream or?
In a dream?
Yeah.
Good question. No, actually, it was again, in the process of the surrendering to the quiet, I didn't have any conscious awareness of such a thing existing. I guess you could say, in a dreamlike place, a trance-like state, or I would call it a deep stillness, as my body opened up to. I honestly, when I think I have answers to some of the questions, like, well, what was going on with your body during those 3 years? I can play with stories about what was going on, but honestly, all I ever heard when I asked was trust with the deepest part of your knowing. Very much a part of this journey for me has been a willingness to not know and yet do it anyway. That has been the biggest piece of surrender for me, because I'm so used, especially as a counselor, to giving explanations. But what happens in a situation like this, when I start to explain as if I understand and I have it as a package for you to take out and comfortably sit within your head, when I get to that place in a presentation, I always feel this 1, 2, 3 thing on my left shoulder, like this tap thing, this 1, 2, 3, as if I'm being shown. And again, I don't know, but it's as if I'm being shown, you can play with these words and these labels as if you know, but it's more than what you think it is. You can't go there. This is about going beyond what you know, to surrendering to something bigger than I am, that we are all connected to. And I do believe that in the way that this happened to me, all of us, if we had time to sit here, we in different ways have our different journeys, our different strands of that tapestry that form the totality. And my little part is this little piece of helping people remember in this way. And other people would be doing this too out there, in different ways. And we're all connected. My part is simply to remind, but we all have this in us somehow. I'm absolutely surprised how many people speak back often in presentations.
I was still wondering about the fact that saying that there are words that are meanings.
Oh, that are meanings.
Did you say Persian language?
Yeah, the Persian, yes, this particular set was Persian, but they all seem to be ancient forms of particular languages.
Yes, there are energies in the universe, and there are some consciousness way up there, which are still around us, and some of these could be related to some cultures, like the Persian culture,
Yes,
and then the language was tied into feelings and nuances, like many languages developed from emotional beings.
yes,
Okay, like the Philippine language, for instance, there's a lot of words there connected with the emotion of love.
yes.
Okay, it must be about 50 or 60 different words to an English one word. Okay.
Right.
So, but all of these are way out there. So I was thinking that your consciousness has evolved to a point where it was accessing these energies of the universe, and they were just flowing into you.
That would actually make a lot of sense to my left brain, and why not have that explanation as a definite possibility, because I describe it as a universal sound current that I open up. People will say, are you channeling? And if a person means in a traditional sense that there's someone else who is separate from me, who is a non-physical entity, who is using my body in some way in a mediumship to do this, no, that's not at all what I experience. Instead, it's an opening up to, it's an accessing something much larger than I am individually, whether we're all encoded with it. I have come across a book called The God Code. Some of you may have heard of it. I'm very interested in that a lot of the little pieces I've read very much connect with things that I was writing in my journal at the beginning of this. Whether we're encoded with it, literally in our DNA somehow, or accessing it out here, as you say, whatever it is, I know that if it's happening to me, we're all connected to it somehow. Yes?
As you were doing what you were doing just now, as you went from person to person, was what you said to you sang or whatever something you've ever done before? Or how did you know when to start it and when to stop it?
That's not a conscious process where I go, okay, now I stop, and it's just there. I can tell you that there are some common phrases over a period of time that I now recognize. How they're used differently with each person is very subtle. This part is how I can distinguish that, by the pattern I see with my finger moving. But I can hear even the same tune sometimes. And that's often true in a group, because we have a common denominator if you choose the belief that we're all here for a reason, that we're somehow connected synchronistically or whatever. It's so funny because at this juncture in my journey, I actually have far more questions than I do answers for this. And you'd think that after 17 years, I'd finally kind of get it together and go, well, now I can tell you. I know it. Now I finally got the puzzle piece. Instead, I'm going, I don't have a clue. It's been 17 years and I'm still shrugging. I'm still going, how is this possible? And I go through periods of hibernation where I step back from it because I have to integrate it into my psyche, going, I'm doing life as a traditional mom and carpools and all those things I've done over the last several years with this split in me, doing this other part and trying to integrate all those facets. And I think the one I'm most comfortable with right now is really, I don't know a lot, but it's enough for me to know that for me in my own life, it brings a feeling of love. No matter what's going on that's uncomfortable for me or stress or whatever, I know that this is always a balm for my soul. And if sharing it in any way can help other people, then I'm always happy to do it because it's my joy to do it. And I honestly, it's genuine when I walk in, and I'm always surprised there are people, sitting there that are willing to hear. It's like, wow, this is such a gift to get to share. I was at a wedding of a gentleman who holds Healing Sounds conferences. It was pre-wedding, actually, and I was just doing a blessing with sound for him and his fiancée, and their rabbi was present. And so as I was doing it, he was translating. Well, I've never taken Hebrew, an ancient form of Hebrew. I mean, how do we explain that except for ideas like what you're saying? Well, we have this collective consciousness that we're all connected to, and my part is to open up, be still, and deliver it. Sure.
Whatever anyone makes of what you do, I think for any of us that are working on learning to trust and just go with the flow, as we say, and let go and let God and so forth, the example of what you provide, whatever sense
whatever it is,
make to anybody, I think is wonderfully inspiring, and I honor you for that. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Because to do what you do, just do it. and you obviously have such joy in it that right there is also a seal of the genuineness of what you do, and whether it makes sense to you, it really isn't.
Thank you.
Is that you trust and deeply enough to act on it and continue acting, and I want to thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. So, yes?
So the tones that you gave to each of us were different. Is that something you feel? I mean, what I mean is from the person you're holding their hand, so you feel certain things and certain words or tones come out, but you really don't know what words they are, it's just the tone.
Exactly. No, all I know in that moment is I'm feeling love. My heart is open and I'm feeling love and I am delivering this. What I'm saying to you?
Well, and I felt kind of a little bit emotional. I mean, I felt like crying. It was kind of odd. I didn't expect that, so I don't know what it was, but it affected me.
Well, thank you for that feedback. It's interesting to me, too, because that's the piece, I think, that goes beyond our conscious knowing. And that's why it's surprising. It's like, how can this nonsense, so to speak, affect change in us? And yet it was enough for me that what I felt in doing it, lying on the ground cushions for so long, despite my mental anguish over the fact that I couldn't sit up, the love that it brought to my own life and my own being, and the stuff it brought up for me. Because I thought naively that surely I'll never have fear again. I'll be healed of all physical wounds forever by this. I mean, I was pretty naive. And instead what I learned is that for every level of love on this path, there's been a corresponding level of fear and a corresponding level of stuff that has had to come up for me to see, I can't get around it. So it's a constant, a constant state of vulnerability in it, no question.
But the love is always there.
The love is, exactly. So that brings it full circle. But the love is always there. And for that reason, despite that piece, even though I go through periods of hibernation, these last three years, I was working in England quite a bit, and it got to a point where I had to make a decision to go more often, to up the work, or to turn the dimmer switch way back and be here at home with my family and my last daughter. And I made the choice to turn that way back. I haven't been to England in over 3 years now, but my daughter's graduating from high school. So now it's like, oh dear, I can't hide anymore behind. I have to be home for now. Now what's up? It's going to be interesting. We'll see. But thank you for your encouragement on that, and thank all of you. If anybody wants any, I have just a few copies of this little Persian piece of paper, and I have a little thing on experience the language of light. I have some cards here, and I have very few. I have like 4 CDs if anybody's interested, but on the website you can see that too. So thank you very much. Best to you on your journeys.